Ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you. First of all, I would like to welcome you to this webinar of Emirates Policy Center for the new year, and it seeks to foresee the day after scenario of the ongoing war in Gaza. As the war in Gaza passes the 100th day, and as Israel shifts to what it's called the third phase of military operations, discussions are increasing about the day after the war. And there is growing regional and international activities to decide the Gaza Strip's future, especially regarding the civilian administration that will govern Gaza, security arrangements, capabilities, and plan to reconstruct what was destroyed during the war. The paradox here is that the future of Gaza Strip after 3 months from the war is more uncertain than what it was during the days following operation of Al-Aqsa flood waged by Hamas against military posts and settlements in the so-called Gaza envelope on October 7. Israel responded by waging an all-out war against the Gaza Strip as part of Operation Swords of Iron. This uncertainty is due to several reasons. First, the ambiguous trajectory of the war in Gaza, especially in light of Israel's failure till now to achieve its primary objective, which is the destruction of Hamas capabilities. Second, the diverse perspectives of international and regional actors on Gaza's future. Third, there is no clear and official perspective in Israel regarding the day after the war due to conflicts and divisions within the Israeli government and political circles. And likewise, the Palestinian side lacks consensus on a national plan or program after the war in Gaza. And in an attempt to clarify this ambiguity, the Emirates Policy Center is organizing this webinar that will delve into 3 themes. The first theme explores the nature and features of the third phase of the Israeli military operations in Gaza. Especially regarding the civilian and administration and different challenges. The third theme addresses Gaza humanitarian situation, the potential and challenges related to reconstruction and issues regarding the return of displaced individuals. And to discuss these 3 themes, we are privileged to host a distinguished group of experts, including Dr. Zaid Ayadat from the Center for Strategic Center at the University of Jordan, and Dr. Abdel Mun'im Said, chairman of the Advisory Council from the Egyptian Center for Strategic Studies. And we have also Dr. Mohannad Mustafa, who is a senior lecturer and head of history department at Beit Berl College. And we have also with us Brigadier General retired Udi Dekil, who is the head of the research program on the Palestinian arena at the Israeli Institute for National Security Studies. And we have also with us Mr. David Makovsky, the Ziegler Distinguished Fellow and Director of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy Project on the Middle East. Welcome to all the participants and thank you for accepting the invitation to join this webinar. I also welcome the attendees who are joining us via Zoom and different other virtual platforms of the center. And now we'll move directly to the webinar proceeding, and we start with the first theme. And here I address question to everyone, but let me start with General Udi. And this is the first theme regarding the possible scenarios of the war on Gaza Strip. General Udi, how can we evaluate the outcome of the war in Gaza Strip till now? And did Israel succeed in achieving the announced objective of its military operation?
Can you ask me in English, please?
Okay. Sorry. I thought the translator is not working?
No, it doesn't.
My question is, what is your assessment of the outcomes of the war in Gaza Strip until now? And has Israel succeeded in achieving the declared objectives of its military operations?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for invited me to participate in these important discussions. I assume that as you know, the main objective of the government of Israel, or the state of Israel in that case, because what happened in the 7th of October is to destroy Hamas military and governmental capabilities in Gaza and create new reality in Gaza that Hamas will not be able to regain its control and power there, and to ensure, of course, the return of the Israeli hostages, which took by the Hamas in the 7th of October. Until now, I can say that there is some achievements in our military activity, especially fighting against the Hamas military wing and try to destroy the operational structure of the Hamas military wing. But in the same time, we still have to engage with what we call terror cells and groups which still exist in Gaza. So even, somebody in Israel mentioned after the 100 days of war, the achievements that we destroy most of the battalions and brigades of Hamas and killed around 9,000 terrorists and detected a lot of underground tunnels, which is amazing what Hamas built during the last 15 years under Gaza, which is a big issue, how to find those tunnels and to destroy them. But we are going step by step in order to detect that tunnels and to destroy them. So in the level of the military activity, we are going according the objectives. I assume that you know from the media that speaking about Israel, some stages in our mode of operation, which the second stages was the most important one, which was the military ground maneuver inside Gaza, because there is no way to find Hamas facilities and Hamas people without going inside Gaza with a lot of course, negative activity for the population of Gaza, because the areas that we came in, we asked them to move to the other side of Gaza. So
right. General Udi, okay. My comment, and I will just move to Dr. Mohanad also to hear from him. But it's obvious until now Hamas is still there. Hamas is ideology. So how can you conquer the ideology? And this is me and others whom they are also saying the same. Dr. Mohanad, can you please let us how you view it from your era.
I think that Israel set three objectives of the war: two announced goals and one non-announced. The two announced goals was to destroy Hamas. This was explained clearly, and also to destroy the military infrastructure of Hamas. Then, after 10 days after the war, there was the objective of getting the hostages from Gaza. But I think from the statements, Israeli statement, there was a third, an announced statement, which is the expulsion of Palestinian of people of Gaza. So the expulsion of people of Gaza without solving the issue. So in my opinion, it's clear now that the third objective is no longer realistic. It's clear that we cannot allow to expulse people forcibly from Gaza or voluntarily. Then there are the two other objectives, which are to destroy Hamas and the return of the hostages. And there's some contradiction in achieving those objectives. They cannot both be achieved at the same time. And Israel has to choose whether to destroy Hamas or to ensure the return of the hostages. There is a contradiction between those two objectives until the moment. And despite the military operation, Israel did not till now achieve the main objective goals of the military operation, especially regarding the destruction of Hamas. And we have seen aggression in the Hamas statement, and we have seen now different terms. Now Israel talk about destroying Hamas infrastructure or destroying the ideology. And I agree with you, Dr. Ibtisam, that you cannot easily destroy the ideology. And there's also the objective of the return of the hostages. Thank
David,
you, Dr. Mohanna.
I engage you in what are the Israelis' motivation for going to the third phase of military operation? What are the contours and characteristics of this phase? What is the expected geographic scope and duration of this phase? And is Israel expecting to achieve what is failed in the last two phases? David?
Oh, I didn't know it was directed to me. Look, I thank you very much, Dr. Ibtisam, for hosting this webinar and inviting me. It's always an honor to be on a panel with you. So thank you very much. Look, I think that it's clear that Israel, the objective here, as I see it, as we see it in Washington, you cannot take an idea in the hearts and minds of people. What you're trying to do is to drive Hamas from power and to get the hostages back. I think that, as we say in English, the jury is still out. I think it's too soon to make an assessment. Israel seems to have pretty much be in charge, yet not of the tunnels, but of northern Gaza, which has been where a lot of the organizational apparatus of Hamas has been located. The United States has been supportive. We would not live with an ISIS-like entity next door that did such atrocities and such barbaric actions. And we can't ask Israel to live with something we couldn't live with ourselves. Now, whether Israel is going to be able to complete the job is still to be seen. I do remember in the second Intifada that after the big high-intensity push of taking the cities, there was a low-intensity push for another 2 years, from 2002 to 2004, until the second Intifada was completed. So it's clear that this is a military directive. The reservists, you had 360,000 reservists after October 7th. You're now down to under 100,000. I think at the peak of the 1982 war in Lebanon, Israel had a 60-day period for reservists. Now you're close to 100 days. Now it's 103 days since October 7th. The operation started a little after that. So it seems to me that the army, for its own reasons, made a decision to go to low-intensity warfare. And we'll have to see how that works. It does dovetail nicely with America's hope that there are fewer airstrikes and more pinpointed attacks. And right now the focus seems to be on the fierce fighting in the Khan Yunis area, in the tunnels where Mohammed Def and Yahya Sinwar are located, but they are surrounded by hostages. This is like out of a scenario from a Hollywood movie that you couldn't even imagine. So it's a difficult situation. I hope this new phase of the war will bring less suffering, and we will see if it will bring results.
Thank you. I'll ask Dr. Zaid and Dr. Abdelmanan just to comment on that before I go to another question. Please, Dr. Zaid.
Yeah, well, again, Doctor, I echo my colleagues here to thanking you for hosting us in a very important and timely webinar on the situation in Gaza. I also wanted to make my reservation on the categorizations of the parties to the conflict made by David and Audi. Aside from the war crimes committed, that is actually, equating the level of genocide, as we see in the international courts by Israel, I would, I'm not a military expert, so I'm not going to talk about the operation per se. But I think, reading the strategic mind of Israel in this war, I might be inclining to see eye to eye with Audi, that Israel actually is more than 80% in its way to achieve its goals, implicit and non-implicit. And I think there are three important goals, Doctor, aside from the way we categorizing them. The first is restoring deterrence, and restoring deterrence has been very active. Now you have Gaza model replacing Al-Dahiya model. And that is, the Israelis' communication with his adversaries. If, anything you do, I'll do what I've done in Gaza. So that is, it was not something because, the official narratives that Hamas is hiding among civilians, probably they are. But, that was systematic. So that is a new model of deterrence. This is our war going to be. The second, making Gaza inhabitable. And that speaks to Moanna's idea, the forced migration, forcing Palestinians to leave. Now, if not to forcing them to leave, then you make it too hard for them to come back to their own homes. And that is partially, achieving a goal of the Israelis. And the other one, of course, is making sure that Gaza at large, as a geographic area, is not governed by what Israel considered a threat or a power that might pose a threat in the future. And even worse than that, going to be no Palestinians control or non-Israeli control of any Israeli border, either with Egypt or Jordan. And we can talk about that later in the webinar. Thank you.
Dr. Abdelmanan, your observation, please.
Well, my observation, always we ask about what are the Israeli objectives and what is done or not done. I think my beginning is what Hamas wanted to do. What is the Palestinian objectives of the actions that started on October 7th? Number one, it was to awaken up the Palestinian question. The area and the region started to go elsewhere since the Arab Spring, and countries started to be building up their own capabilities, and I mean here economic, social, cultural, and the rest of what I call it reforming these countries. And I guess getting the Palestinian question into the agenda became now, can be seen. How to deal with it is a completely different thing, but you cannot ignore it anymore. It will make the lives of everyone, very difficult. Second one is to sabotage the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and Saudi Arabia and the United States, because both were creating a strategic shift in the region with bringing the US in a kind of a model that was talked about, the Korean model of relationship with Saudi Arabia and also UAE. In that matter is to have a security ironclad agreement of the United States will be interfere in case of a state of defense in the region. Sabotaging that by Hamas was, of course, part, in my opinion, of an Iranian strategy to do that. And number three is really to make what it seems to me like an alliance, a block of military political relationship between Iran and its own satellites, from the popular mobilization in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine, the revolutionary people in Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen.
Right.
The escalation that we have seen saw, a strategic and tactical presence of this group of countries that is amazingly started with
So if I want to ask you, Dr. Abdelmanan, did Israel achieve their goals or not? And from all these observations.
No,
They did
Israel
not.
didn't restore deterrence. I mean, all the points that made by Zaid and others, taking the hostages, it didn't. And now, destroying the Palestinian people the way it is done in very barbaric way is really, for Israel, is not the real thing that they wanted to do. They thought that kind of punishment might bub up the Hamas people, so they can, either kill them or catch them. That didn't happen. Actually, the support for Hamas increased.
Okay, thank you. I'm just will move to the question of scenarios, and we'll go to Udi. Udi, what are likely the scenarios for the war in Gaza Strip? How will disagreement between Netanyahu government and Biden administration affect the future of the war? In light of the new variable related to the genocide case brought by South Africa against Israel at the International Court of Justice in The Hague, how will the International Court of Justice potential ruling affect the course of the war?
Okay.
Please, General.
Okay, I'm open. Yes.
Yes.
First of all, there is no any objective of punishment of the Palestinian people, and the Palestinian people which are not involved in the, even according the numbers, which are not the real numbers, but according the numbers of the Hamas, okay, you can see that half of the people were involved, or half of the people are under the Hamas structure. So there is no punishment of people. We didn't destroy the houses of the people as a punishment. We destroy every house that we found that there is terror facilities inside. There is weapons, rockets, and other things. Israel operates according to the international law. Somebody asked me how it's happened that there is police forces in the northern part of Gaza. I told that people, because police force is a civilian target, and we cannot attack them as a civilian target according to international law. This is the reason now you can see some policemen in the northern part of Gaza after Israel pulled out its forces from those areas. So Israel tried to do everything according to the international law. This
What
is
will be
not-
the scenario? What is in your view the scenario will be?
The scenario, as we said from the beginning, unfortunately, that it's going to be very, very, very long confrontation, because now we change the mode of operation. It will be more precise activity, but we have to, go on fighting against the Hamas and don't give the Hamas the ability to build up its force again. So this is too early to say the conclusions of the war. We are going to keep our pressure upon Hamas and don't give them the ability to control Gaza. At the same time, of course, we would like to find a solution to the issue of the kidnapped people. But
Okay.
for
Before I move, I just hear
another one sentence. In the same time, it's very important now to start with the process, how to manage a civilian's life in Gaza. And I have a lot of things to say about it later.
Udi, there is another question related or comes with it. Can Israel fight on more than one front? What about the Lebanon front? What about now Houthi is attacking? What about coming from Syria or Iraq? And you are engaged in that. Can you bear it? Can Israel bear that? Many fronts open? Regional war?
First of all, we try to do the best that there will not be regional war, because this is not our interest, a regional war. And this is not your interest, I assume, as well. Second, we have to understand the reality. This is Iran using proxy war against us. They will do the same if they achieve their goals. Maybe we will discuss it later. They will do the same to you and to the others. So we have to engage with Iran, which operate all its proxies from many fronts against Israel. But still we control the level of the activity under what we call the threshold of the war. We can deal with the Hezbollah in Lebanon, but we don't believe that this is the time now, okay? And we try by the Americans to find solution to the situation in Lebanon, which, Hezbollah attacked us in order to say that they support the Hamas, but this is the way which Iran using all its forces. So we control the level of the intensity along those many arenas.
Okay, David, it's the same. What is the scenario? But I'm commenting on Udi's what he's saying. If I am Iran, and of course, this is a golden opportunity for me to open more than one front and engage Israeli in many fronts and to weaken them. This is when we are saying you do things and you miscalculate the other thing. David, please.
Look, I can't speak to Iran's motivations, its ability. I agree with you, Udi, that they seem to relish the use of proxies. But, my understanding of Iran is that they have wanted to avoid direct conflict with the United States. And yet they are bringing the U.S. and Israel closer operationally than before with aircraft carriers and the like, and now the U.S. is, going after Houthis in the Red Sea, getting 20, 30 countries together in a naval coalition. And for Americans who had wanted to, be less engaged in the Middle East, they now see the hand of Iran more. And so thanks to the Iranians, they have led the U.S. to be more engaged against them and their proxies. They want to call that achievement. They could call it an achievement.
You think the scenario will be regional war, or
I think everyone wants to avoid it. I think, as Udi said correctly, the Israelis want to avoid it. The United States wants to avoid it. The question is it avoidable? My understanding is a third of all container ships go through the Suez Canal, the Red Sea. Abdul Munim would know more than me, but I would think this idea of free commerce is something that stable countries in the Middle East would, welcome, and cannot afford for an Iranian proxy to thwart free commerce in the entire world. So the United States will have to be more and more involved, and it's not something the U.S. seeks. But if the Houthis want to stop international commerce, the U.S. will not walk away from this challenge. Just no way will that happen. The Lebanon question is a different question. I think the U.S. preference is to look for diplomatic solutions. I understand Israel's element here too. You have 80,000 people in the border area of Kiryat Shmona and all around in the northern, and you have to tier, and you need to convince them to come back to their homes. Their view is, if I didn't like the book, I hate the movie. If this is what Hamas will do in the south, then the Radwan of commando force of Hezbollah, they could replicate this on the northern border. And so whether there's a diplomatic way out, I don't know. I think if there is not, Israel will use force. Again, the U.S. doesn't want a regional war. Israel doesn't want a regional war. I don't think Hezbollah even wants a war. But, sometimes in this game of brinkmanship, you don't always know where the brink is precisely. And the danger is of miscalculation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Dr.
Zaid, how realistic the Israelis' perspective on the future of Gaza as proposed by Netanyahu and Gallant, and based on handing over the civil administration of the Strip to local parties, while Israel retains the security administration and builds a security will? How can Israel impose this perspective as Hamas continues its resistance and rejection by the Palestinian, American, European, and the Arabs to this perspective?
Well, thanks again, Doctora. I'm not sure it's very realistic, but I don't think also it is impossible. And I'll explain how and why. But before that, one more time, Doctora, Odie's comments on Israel going by the book when it comes to the international law. Odie, I think this is too much of stretching. This is not even a good joke. There is a global consensus that Israel has been breaking every
this is not global consensus.
article. Let me finish my sentence. Each and every single article of international law, especially humanitarian law and others, and I think that's why we're witnessing what we're witnessing in the International Court of Justice. This is important to say. And the second, this is where I disagree with you, but I agree with you. There's going to be a long confrontation. And there's going to be a long confrontation also, Doctora, for reasons has to do with Israel. And what Israel in the games in the whole thing. Dr. Al-Mun'im tried to provide us with the motives of Hamas and why this has happened, because this is actually to explain the next day in Gaza. And there are two, I think, in my mind, to simplify it, two narratives. Hamas actually wanted, because of working for themselves or as a proxy of others, to disturb what was supposed to be new norms of the region. The Saudi-Israeli negotiations, the integration, the new, international American-led coalition from India to Europe through the Middle East, etc., etc., etc. And that was always based on an assumption that, Israel still actually can be normalizing with the Arab countries in everywhere without providing a just, comprehensive solutions to the Palestinian issue, which proved to be wrong. So this is one. But also you can look at it from Israelis' policies and politics toward the Palestinian issue, and of course the internal struggle between Hamas and Fatah and the Palestinians. So there are different ways to look at it, but all in all, it talks about two important things. This is bigger than Hamas, and this is beyond Gaza. And that is the grand picture of the region. Now, talking about Iran, bringing it into the play, of course, Iran is to be losers, the first loser of everything happening in the region. So to expect the reactions that I totally in disapproval. And I think, you know, Iran's interference in the Arab countries, controlling more than 4 capitals, is as bad as Israel's occupation of the Israeli land. So this is not to say, but one last thing, Doctor, and I'll stop it in here. The strategy is to take this war confrontation as long as is possible for 2 things: delaying any changes in Israeli internal politics, including elections and others, and we know what's happening in the Israeli street. And second, keeping the American support, unconditioned support and approval of Israeli actions to as long as it takes. And of course, waiting for changes also in American politics after the elections. So we have to see where we're going in that direction.
Right. Muhannad, can I ask you in English? Or is this okay? And you answer in Arabic? That's fine for you?
Yeah, of course.
What does the Biden administration mean by revitalized Palestinian Authority? Can Palestinian National Authority control Gaza Strip in light of Israel rejection, reservations by Hamas, and the declining legitimacy and popularity of President Mahmoud Abbas? And is the Biden administration capable and ready to accept Abbas conditions in the war, resumption of the flow of aid to Gaza, and prevent the resettlement of Palestinians outside Gaza?
We can talk about different factors regarding revitalize the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. There are many factors that affect this scenario. We have the Palestinian internal factor, and in my opinion, this is the most important factor, more important than the Israeli one. The Palestinian one is about the consensus about the national project and a construction of national movement in Palestine within a clear project of Palestinian Authority. This consensus does not exist yet. So talking about a national authority in Gaza within this context of lack of consensus will not be successful, especially after the war in Gaza. So this is the internal factor. It's about legitimacy of President Mahmoud Abbas. The second factor is about Israel. Israel, its approach towards Gaza is a military security one and lacks a political approach and strategic approach. Second, Israel doesn't have an interest about the return of Palestinian Authority to Gaza because it does not want to unify Gaza Strip and the West Bank to achieve a national resolution for the 2-state solution. So this will mean for them Palestinian unity, and Israel doesn't want that, especially Netanyahu doesn't want that. And nobody in Israel is talking about the return of Palestinian Authority to Gaza. This is like something that is settled in Israel. But doctor, is it possible the return of Palestinian Authority with the approval of people of Gaza? I think with the current Palestinian Authority, it will not be accepted by the people of Gaza because it lacks legitimacy in the West Bank, because it doesn't provide security to Palestinian from the daily arrest by Israeli police. And the different areas B have become now area C. There are daily arrests daily raids by the police, and which means that the National Palestinian Authority did not provide security to people need economic development and not any development at the political level. So this Palestinian Authority doesn't have legitimacy. And the fact that they came to Gaza, the fact that they come to Gaza after the war, this means that they will have less legitimacy than what they have now. And this is a very big challenge for the American perspective. And the situation is clear in Palestine.
Dr. Abdelmanin, given its proposal for transnational technocratic government to administer Gaza and the West Bank, how should the Egyptian initiative be assessed in the light of President Mahmoud Abbas' rejection? What are the terms of reference for the national unity government proposed by Palestinian factions led by Hamas and Islamic Jihad? With these two groups' rejections of the PLO program, how viable is it to hold election in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem after a year or more to renew the Palestinian representation legitimacy? If Hamas were to win, would Israel and the international community accept the outcome, or would we return to the 2006 scenario?
Yani, let me start by just, I want to say something funny, but I liked the handkerchief on the bucket of Zayd. It's really lovely.
All yours.
Yeah. Now, I will say, gentlemen, our worst enemy we have is time. As we speak now, there are people are dying, slaughtered, and whatever. I mean, there is also a rising violence in the entire region, and I save none. That is from Baluchistan in Pakistani-Iranian borders to, you know, the desert of Africa, where a lot of terrorists are there. We have a number of complexes of wars in the region are now, like a furnace is getting heated up every day. Unless there is a block of people and countries that really to start thinking anew and creating a new project for the region. Unfortunately, Israel, we thought with its democracy or liberalism or whatever, that they will think in sanity way, in dealing not to be played off by the Iranians. Israel was a toy in the hands of the Iranians. They did exactly what they need to shift a nationalist struggle into a religious struggle. And unfortunately, we have a cabinet that speak in a, I will say sometimes very extreme way about, expulsion of people, people like animals, all kinds of things. That's, I didn't want to say because of our friends here, but I want to say it is possible as a transitional period that worked out by the UN, any international organization, we can get one benefit at least from them, for a transitional period on the Gaza Strip. And we can put international forces. It happened before, and it can happen now if we are talking about serious stuff in getting and even reconstruction of Gaza. But that's one of the pieces of the game. The piece of the game is Israel really want to be a state of the Middle East. Here, and also the acceptance of that. Saudis are made it clear. They are ready to continue the issue of normalization with Israel. Then Israel has a great opportunity in the region, really to make that such an exchange. But could they do that? I don't know. Our friends can tell us. But I will tell you that already there are a discussion about a technocratic group headed by Mr. Salam Fayyad, and somehow it has to be worked out with PLO leadership and also with others. My solution, add to that Marwan Barghouti, if you really Israelis here, or people can talk to the Israelis, can have a national leadership for the Palestinian people. This peace, give me two sentences, Ibtisam.
Yes.
One, there is no peace without healthy Israeli politics. and without healthy Palestinian politics. Without both of those, we are going all to hell, including countries that has nothing to do with what's happening right now. We are punished in Egypt by a threat for pushing Palestinians, and now by circling and besieging the Suez Canal.
Right. Thank you. Odi, Dr. Abdelmanan, I think many initiative has been put on the table, and some of it, because it depends who's looking at it. From Hamas, it's not realistic, or PLO, from different, or from Israel. Odi, what is the most likely scenario for the future of Gaza Strip? Are we facing the same scenario that existed before the Israeli withdrawal in 2005, or the scenario of Area B in the West Bank, or is it the Gaza scenario before the Hamas coup against Fatah in 2007? Udi?
Mute. You're mute.
I would like to proceed from the position of Dr. Munaim, because I totally agree with him in the beginning of his presentation. The main way to go to positive direction from this side is that we can go back to the idea of integration and normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia as a part of creating a new architecture in the Middle East. Gaza is this is a small story of the big story. That will be the main way not to give the Iran the ability to torpedo all the positive, let's say, trends in the area and destroy the stability in the area. The idea is that as a part of normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, there will be a Palestinian package, big package, discussing about a political process between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and the way that the PA will be capable to take the responsibility of Gaza. They are not capable today. They need the help and the assistance of others to be ready to take over the responsibility of Gaza. I totally agree that one of the best way to do that they will get support from Arab task force that will escort them in the mission of taking over Gaza, and then go forward in the political process of Israel, because other way we will be involved all the time in crisis and war.
But Odi, what will motivate the Arabs to go there? Why? Who is willing to?
I assume that
I don't think the Egyptian or the Jordanian or the Gulfists.
I agree. I think that everybody in the Middle East and all of the participants in those conversations would like to see the end of the war. Would like to see stability. Would like to see prosperity in the Middle East. And we are in the camp of the US, and we would like that the US will lead the positive direction of the Middle East. I assume that everybody is around that ideas. And as President Biden said, we can take this event and war as opportunity to shape better reality for everybody in the Middle East. But for that, you cannot sit on the fence and look and see what will be. Everybody have to be involved. We cannot, Israel cannot solve our problem with the Palestinian only by bilateral option. We need multilateral activity and involvement, more partners in the process in order to find the best solution for everybody. And this has to be the outcome of this war. That has to be the outcome of this war. Otherwise, Iran will be the win-win situation.
David, but I have also a comment on that. Udi, you know, you are plagued by your domestic politics and instability in terms of changing government. And this is affecting also your ability. Now, David, is the U.S. administration able and willing to revive the peace process to advance the two-state solution? And what guarantees exist for no more war in the future in Gaza?
Good question. I don't know if the answer is as good as the question. Look, it's clear the United States would love to revive what Abdulmunim said of a Saudi breakthrough after this war is over. I think if this president could do it, he would be the one who would want to do it himself. And I think, frankly, a Democrat is best positioned. There's elections in the United States in November to get a breakthrough in the Senate of a defense treaty that the Saudis want. You need 2/3 of the Senate, 2/3. The last time the U.S. has had a military treaty, I believe, was Japan, 1960, and it was a different America in those days. Now, I don't know if you don't have a Democratic president, if you will get Democrats to support a deal with Saudi Arabia, given the history with the Democrats and the Saudis has always not been perfect. So I think the U.S. is willing on this regard. I think on the idea of the two states, which I think is a very fair question, and I think your point, Dr. Abdeslam, is a fair question too. There's also an Israeli domestic piece to it. Let's be fair that none of these countries that we're talking about in Egypt or Jordan or any of these countries would agree to a two-state outcome that would look that Hamas could fire rockets at your country, at Egypt, you know, or Jordan, and just wouldn't allow it. So if the two states looks like Costa Rica, no problem. Then I think the Israeli domestic politics would change. But if this Palestinian state looks more ideologically and military menacing, there's no precise analogies, but like Iran or North Korea or something like that, no way. That's why it's a dialogue of the deaf right now. There's an ocean of difference between the discourse in America and in the Arab world about two states, that they assume it's a Costa Rica-like concept. And in Israel, they say, no, you withdraw from land, you're more vulnerable, you're not more secure. And I think unless we talk about the character of the two states, we're not saying anything, and we are talking past each other. I said that on American television last night, on national television. I really believe that. I think we need to be much more precise about who is going to enforce the two states. I mean, Hamas in 2007, they outmuscled the Palestinian Authority. They took over from the PA, and they've been in charge until this war. So is it that kind of state? I mean, that's one that none of us would want to live in. So we have to be fair. I also think I want to say something a little more close to the lines of Udi. I am not here to say that everything Israel did was perfect. I'm sure there will be investigations about the bombing in the first 2 weeks of the war, how it was done or not. But let's also be fair that if you want to talk about a genocidal thing, a country that wants to commit genocide does not take 1 million people from Gaza and say, go on the Salah ad-Din road so you can avoid one person being killed. And again, I'm not defending every airstrike of Israel. I want to repeat, I am not. But let's be fair. The people who want to perpetrate genocide is Hamas. Look what they say in their own charter: kill Jews wherever you can. So it's total hypocrisy what's going on, and the Arab leaders know it, but they won't say it to their publics because it's not convenient.
Let's hear Dr. Zaid comment on that.
Yeah,
Please.
because I can't wait to this nonsense. I'm sorry, David and Odi. I mean, look, ministers in the government call Palestinians animals. For God's sake.
I'm not excusing that at all. I'm not excusing that at all.
Hold on. How are you going to be fair when there are ruling elites in Israel that seeing Palestinians as animals? And these people have to leave. It's not one, it's not two. It is the majority of the Israelis people now seeing that the Palestinians are not worth of living next to. Well, look, I'm not defending Hamas either. I never support Hamas, and I'm not in approval of what they've done. And I say that publicly and say it now here. People will hear it from me, and they can denounce me in Jordan and different places. But this story, this narrative that is Israel is always right and everyone else is wrong.
I just said the
I'm
opposite.
sorry, David, let me finish. We got sick and tired of that. We got sick and tired. And I'll tell you the story. It's not only that damn Hamas did what they done in 2007. It is the Israelis' mindset decisions that there's going to be no state for Palestinians whatsoever. And it's about time now to determine that is the end of the Palestinian issue. And Israel, of course, Odi, yes, it is the best game in town. Let's go to talk to the Saudis, the Emirates, the Jordanians, and Egyptians, with one exception, not to Palestinians. They don't exist. We're not giving them anything. And you know what? They're going to be a package to the Palestinians. What kind of package are we going to get for the Palestinians? They damn have a right to have a state to their own. And who going to tell me today what is the two-state solution?
This is the package. It is the package.
This is not a package. I'll tell you what's the package.
This is the package.
I'll tell you what the package. I'll tell you what is the package now. It's been working now. They're going to be a deal on, this is the new game in town, and David, listen to this, and Odi, listen to this. They're going to be a new game in town. We're going to call it, yes, we're going to go to an international conference. We're going to do something like Oslo, Madrid, you call it what you want. And the Saudis will, bring things to the table. We're going to talk about Palestinian state that is not identified in terms of borders, of land, and of sovereignty and authority. And of course, there's going to be no talk about return of refugees. And Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and the rest of the people have to deal with the refugees issues and elsewhere. There are so many hypocrisy going in there. Everyone feels that, everyone in Israel, everyone in the States feel it's time for Israelis to get, to do what they want to do and then get what they want to get. It does not work that way. The Emiratis gave you the Abraham Accord years ago. Because of the ignorance of the Israeli government, because of the way the Israeli government dealt with the Palestinian and the West Bank, you got October 7. Have you agreed with the Emiratis?
Wow.
Then? Yes.
Huh.
Yes. You did not deliver to what you have to deliver. I remind you, Odi, one last thing. I'm going to remind you with something.
Yeah, let me
Netanyahu
interfere.
plan was annexation of Jordan Valley and the rest. And it was because of the Emiratis that they frozen that annexation. So the mindset is very clear. And I'm not defending that because I'm defending Hamas or other people. Because I want peace.
But we didn't do any annexation to Gaza. We disengaged from Gaza. We didn't do any annexation of Gaza.
Yeah, but you see
disengagement from Gaza to give
this is becoming a debate.
Doctor, I'm sorry. One last sentence. You did two things.
Always.
He stayed Gaza for too long, and Netanyahu make deal with Hamas, funding them and their operations to stay in power and to split Palestinians' powers.
You know
that, and I know that. I'll stop here.
I know that because you and others told us that if the situation will be better, and if the situation of the Palestinians which are living in Gaza will be better, we can keep, it's a quiet and stable situation there. Okay, that was the other story. And don't forget all the attempt in order to achieve a two-state solution and who destroyed those processes along the years. Okay,
Netanyahu.
Another sentence. Don't take one minister, extreme minister, in the Israeli government. He's not represent Israel.
Please, Dr. Zayed, please. Dr. Mohammed. Now, with the approximately 90% of Gaza population, or about 2 million people displaced, are we witnessing a scenario of radical demographic change? Does the risk of displacement of Palestinians still exist?
I would like to answer the question, but to comment on the discussion that took place recently. Israeli thinking did not change. The thinking that we can marginalize the Palestinian cause and put it aside has proved its failure. The Palestinian issue is now the main issue, and there's not only demand of ceasefire. And since Odi talked about it, we don't only want ceasefire, we also want to cease all the settlements and the occupation of the Palestine, and the Palestinian people need to have the right to establish their own state, which Israel is not allowing. Some ministers in the government of Israel do not recognize the Palestinian people, that they do not recognize that they exist. They do not recognize the political rights as a Palestinian people. This is why talking about prosperity and how to marginalize the Palestinian cause, this is not possible. And with the 7th October, this has been destroyed. If you allow me, Dr. Abdel Munaim, before leaving, would you like to say something? I would like to say that we need probably more time if we can have a face-to-face discussion, because there are many ideas
And I will shift in English. All what we talked about here is really near further explanation. Unless there is a block of peace in the region, only the forces of war will win, and we will have a region that's in very great difficulties in the very near future. Hezbollah will work out things. The situation in Syria will deteriorate further. We have problems in Iraq now, and in the Red Sea. A lot of things that was built by previous generation will be even in Egypt and Israel. There is a lot of frictions going on that shouldn't happen. But when situation become almost like the madness pre the First World War is going on, is simmering in the region in every front. I mean, when now Iran hit places in Pakistan and places in Iraq, and that's guys is really a situation that's a lot of fire is there. Religion, when it comes, we will have almost like the 30 years war, but we are in the 21st century. Unless we are honest enough to know to recognize each other first, seriously. I mean, we become all Costa Ricas if it's possible. But since we cannot be all Costa Ricas, and some of our Costa Ricas got a nuclear bomb without anybody telling them why you have it, we have a serious problem in the region. And now people are at stake. The innocent people were killed in Israel. And, in a very, and I hear, Ask Odi is one thing. Let us get into a serious international investigation of what happened. At the beginning, David said that the jury is still out. We want juries. It's not what you say, not what the Arabs say. That's something only for history, for learning that sometimes criminal acts has been done. I read almost, I will say, every book about Nazism and what happened in Auschwitz and other places. And everywhere there, every Jew who went there, he started naked. And when I saw, the pictures of Palestinian captives naked, that was awful. The pictures of infants in their incubation process cannot, find the oxygen. So there are things that we all got to feel repulsive about it, and not to allow it to be what will be happening in the future, please. Because now we are into it, starting from the Red Sea and from Iraq and the Mashriq, Israel and Palestine.
Thank you, Dr.
And I will close here. Thank you, Ibtisam.
Thank you
for
joining us. Thank you.
دكتور ابتسام كمان ملاحظة.
Yes, Dr. Mohanad, and if you can please answer me.
كمان ملاحظة تسمح.
Just one comment, if you allow me. I follow the Israeli issues almost on a daily basis. The Israeli, they follow the Arabs' statement. Maybe imam of a mosque in a marginalized area would say something about the Jews, they will generalize it about the Arabs. And we will see that from Israeli officials who would start using them. And we see that those statements that we see now on social media, statements within the Israeli society, 1% of them, whether from about Arabs, about Palestinian, that the reaction would be different. And as someone who lives the reality inside Israel, what the Arab citizens are not given the opportunity to go into manifestation against the war, to protest against the war. But what is happening in the West Bank is also very dangerous. What is happening in the West Bank now is to completely destroy the authority of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Now the PLO is not existing at all. It's just like a municipality or even less than municipality. Dr. Muhannad, my question to you was
هل احنا we are witnessing a radical scenario of demographic change? The risk of displacement of Palestinians still exists?
As I said earlier, this scenario was one of those scenarios laid out by Israelis, and many politicians spoke about it, and some ministers from the cabinet. In my opinion, this scenario is no longer realistic significantly, because we have the Egyptian position which ejects, and also the Jordanian position regarding the forcible migration. They eject that. So it's clear that forced migration of those Palestinians would mean the end of the Palestinian cause. So this scenario is no longer realistic. Even in Israel, it's no longer realistic.
Udi. No. Considering almost total destruction of Gaza and the estimated 50 billion cost of reconstruction, what mechanism or potential entities are poised to lead to mission? What are the expectations and challenges associated with this process, bearing in mind that the Israeli asking the others coming to build Gaza from the scratch, and this is the worst situation been ever there, and the others, they are not going to engage in that unless you give them guarantees that this will not happen, not only from Hamas side, from Palestinian side, also from the extremists inside Israel itself. And you know how is the situation exacerbated because of the new government came, and how the violence started and antagonized both sides. Please, Udi.
There is something that I would like to say that you said before. Israel doesn't want to control Gaza. Israel would like to keep its freedom of action against the terror infrastructure in Gaza. Like, like Area A in the Palestinian Authority. If the PA destroy, we cannot come in. If they don't, we have to come in and to destroy the terror infrastructure. This is the main idea which Israel would like to see to Gaza. Second, there is many new ideas how to rebuild Gaza. There is opportunities.
But Odi, let me ask you the first what you said. Do you have an idea how long this will take?
Forever.
Forever? So you are in an endless war?
No, until, as we said before, until there is ability of the PA to control Gaza and to prevent Hamas from attacking us and for building up the terror capabilities and use them against Israel. You don't, and as we don't want to see any kind of a strategic victory of Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood, okay? So we would like to see something else.
But we don't want to see more civilian being killed. The same at the same time.
As well, me as well. We don't want to see that civilians suffered from that situation. We would like that the people will be able to live their life, normal life, prosperity. This is the words that we have to use. So there is a lot of ideas now how to use the situation in Gaza, because there is possibility now to rebuild Gaza. You know, even from the rebel, you can use the rebel in order to rebuild Gaza. I can tell you that we check with many companies what are the implications and the cost to do that. And there is very interesting ideas. You can find one of them, you can find on the web of Portland Trust in London. They did some research about that. So I hope that we will be able and smart enough, Israel, the Palestinians and others, to take that as advantage to build something new in Gaza, that the people of Gaza will be able to live normal life and to do what is good for them. So from crisis, you can make opportunities. And this is the mission. I know that there is ideas about our current government. I can tell you that our current government, even you call it extreme government, they consider some of those ideas, and Israel still support, delivery of water and electricity to Gaza, not as we declared from the beginning, but we have to be part of that, but we cannot lead that process, because if we lead that process, everybody will be against that. So we need somebody else that lead that process, and we can support from outside how to do that.
Thank you. David, given that it's a catastrophic and unprecedented humanitarian situation in Gaza since October 7th, could we anticipate increased U.S. and international pressure on Israel to facilitate more humanitarian aid?
Look,
Can you guys do this?
Yeah, look, it's clearly something the U.S. has prioritized. The president personally has prioritized this, and it's not a controversial idea at all. Look, I think the fact that Israel is going from high-intensity warfare to low-intensity warfare, maybe it will never get credit on Arab media, but I think it's the casualty numbers are not what they were in the first few weeks of the war. And I'm not saying that there's not a single innocent person is dying. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the U.S. clearly has been supportive of the Israeli military to go from high intensity to low intensity, more pinpointed strikes. And that's, look, Israel just took out the Golani division. There's tens of thousands that just left this week. I think another division's about to leave. What I was saying before about the reservists going from 360 to under 100,000. The war is changing its character.
This is because of the economic situation in Israel, right? This is
it was the military who also thought that it was too much, but the U.S. has also been nudging in this direction. So it's the Israeli public will take it more from its own military. If it looks like it's an external diktat of America, it would not take it. And I don't think it is a diktat of the United States. It's not about of lowering the intensity of the war so fewer people are hurt. But clearly the focus is Khan Yunis, the tunnels, the Sinwar, Mohammed Def, etc. So I would like to hope it might look more like the second Intifada of 2003 and 2004 versus 2002 and 2001, which were the peak. I think that the war has passed its peak, is what I'm saying, and I hope it doesn't regionalize. What?
This is mission impossible. I mean, getting Sinwar, getting Tayyip, getting...
I don't know, but it's not when you take out tens of thousands of soldiers out of the system. This is factual. This is not a theory anymore. This is the reality. And of course, Israel will get no credit from in the Arab world. But I'm telling you, this is the reality. And I think for the United States, there's a sense there's been some convergences. Is there frustration? There's a lot of frustration with elements of the government on the West Bank, more on tax revenues to the PA, that the U.S. and the Israeli defense establishment does not want a new front in the West Bank. They don't want it. So this is very upsetting. I mean, I don't want to bring in too much of the Israeli domestic political situation, but I do think a couple of things are worth noting for our guests also, that if you look at the polling data, this government would not be reelected. 76% of Israel wants Netanyahu to resign, partly because it didn't prepare October 7th. These people on the extreme fringe, the Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, they are not doing well in the polls. You know, what's doing well in the polls is a centrist party led by Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot. The Israeli public wants to see more unity and does not want to see the extremists setting the tone. And I know that this panel, very distinguished, are people who follow things in Israel very closely. I think should give credit that, the Israelis they don't want to be killed. That's it. They want to be safe. They want to know that if they pull out, they're more secure. They're not more vulnerable. We have to make sure that any equation on two states brings dignity to both sides, and security to both. And this is key. And Reconstruction, I think, is very hard. To answer your question, and I'm not trying to dodge it, Dr. Ibtissam, because it's expensive. And I know if I was the Emirates or the Saudis or anybody like that, I'd want to know that I'm not giving money to something that there's going to be another war in 2 more years. It would be impossible. So yes, we should try to find ways to solve it. But we should know that if one side is vulnerable, if the Palestinians are vulnerable, this will not work. But if the Israelis are vulnerable, this will not hold either. We have to think for both sides. That's all.
That's right. I want to ask about, the ball in the Israeli government there. If they want to take it from there, it's always about would they help in two-state solution or whatever for the Palestinian to make this region moving from what I call it, standing on a belt of earthquakes. Every year we have another crisis, to more prosperity. And this is what my country, Emirates, aspire from Abrahamic Accord, convincing you that it can be. Can you see the other side? Can you taste it? But it seems things going other side always. Before ending this, I want, how can we back to the situation before 7th October war? How can we move from there? I will start, Dr. Zaid, then I will come to you. Please, Dr. Zaid.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Again, I'll be brief. And I agree with Odi and David, rebuilding going to be costly and difficult and hard, and we have to find ways to do it, and we have to do it. But for to incentivize, especially Arab partners to be part of it, then yes, there has to be guarantees. This is not probably going to happen again anytime soon. And yes, David, I think it's not only the Israelis, they don't want to be killed. I think everyone else in the region doesn't want to be killed. And if you also, I do polls as the CSS in Jordan, people want to live in peace with everyone. And we've been investing in that. And we've been actually hoping that, this extremist type of right-wing government in Israel go. And it did not, unfortunately. It, came up with the full force for the last year or so. And we hope that, what we see in the polls in Israel actually can be translated into a serious political actions. And then we have different ruling elites in both Israel and Palestine. We would love to see different ruling elites in both sides. That's both are just, for peace, for prosperity, and for living next to each other in peace and prosperity as well. So, Doctor, to go back to before October 7, I think we have to deal with the cause roads, the root causes of the whole thing. And this has to do definitely with the occupation and providing Palestinians a path for hope, and also providing the Israelis a path for trust that they are secure. And for that to happen, I guess there is only one way. This is regional grand strategy of bringing all people to the table, guaranteeing that the Israelis, the Palestinians will enjoying their rights to have their statehood, as indicated and agreed on in international laws. And also the Israelis will live, in peace and security side by side to Israel's and also to the Arabs. The region has a great potential. Otherwise, we will be losing the region to Iran and Iran's proxies, as we all agreed to. We are fueling their grassroots and social base. Look at the numbers. As yes, they're taking over and they're taking advantage of that. So there are serious challenges, and I see, and we've talked about that, Doctor, before. This could be the golden opportunity to come to an end to the situation. And that's where the Americans needs to actually to play a major role. They can bring all parties to the table, providing, guarantees for rights to Palestinians to live in their state, in their land, and also to the Israelis to live in peace and security with the Palestinians.
I think we have to wait for the presidential election in the United States because also this administration has limited option to move beyond what it has. Dr. Mohanna,
No,
your perspective, you are also a guy who is following the Israeli every day, the Palestinian every day, and I need this as being as an analyst and objective in that. Would it be a future without Hamas?
First of all, Dr. Ibtisam, we cannot go back to the time before 7 October, whether at the regional level or at the Palestinian level or even at the Israeli level. So the period before 7 October is different in thinking and the strategy and handling the Palestinian and Arab reality. The idea of thinking about the future of Gaza Strip and the Palestinian issue after the 7 October without Hamas is very complex, because at the end, Hamas is not ISIS. It's not ISIS, and this is here academic description. Hamas is not ISIS. Hamas participated in the elections. It has its social basis in the West Bank and in Gaza. So how can we build a political system in a political regime in Palestine without Hamas? So the idea of destroying Hamas as part of building a future regime in Palestine, in my opinion, this is not possible. Or maybe we can build a regime in Palestine without Hamas, but such a regime will suffer all the time from the lack of legitimacy. So we need to think from scratch at the Palestinian level, domestically, by building a Palestinian authority, not in a romantic way or in form of nostalgia, but building an organization that will have a clear national project, realistic, and that can be achieved. And then we can build a Palestinian regime with legitimacy. Thank you.
You are the guy who is working and published on the two-state solutions. And is it viable? Do you see it can be?
I still believe that there is no other option. Okay, we have to separate from the Palestinians and to give them the ability to fulfill their ambitions. There is no other way, because in any case, Israel doesn't want now, especially after the 7th of October, that all the Palestinian people, I'm speaking about 2 million people in Gaza, more than 2 million, and almost 3 million in the West Bank, will be part of Israel. Of course, this is not any will or any objective of the Israeli society and the government. So we have to find a way to go back to the process. But as I said before, the main way to do that is by returning back to the normalization and integration path, that you will be part of the process between us and the Palestinians. This is the only way that we can achieve that goal. And that will be good answer to those which try to destroy the positive movement and destroy the new situation and stability in the Middle East. About Hamas, I don't see any case that from the Israeli point of view, Hamas can be, again, a political party and especially a military wing. We will not accept any idea that Hamas is part of the political systems of the Palestinians. We will accept that the PA is leading the Palestinian, of course, camp and leading the Palestinian process for a state, but not as a conciliation or a unified government between Hamas and Fatah. Israel cannot accept it anymore after the 7th of October.
David.
Look, to return to October 7th, before October 7th seems almost like a dream. I don't know if it's possible. I always want to look at how do you turn crisis into opportunity. I think we all on this panel, I hope we all on this panel will see the Gulf states like the UAE under Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed and the Saudis and the others to be a bridge, and not the bypass road, and to help economically and politically, that the moderates can show results. I mean, I truly believe if the idea of two states was about prosperity, and as my friend and colleague Dr. Zayed said, I tend to believe Israel likes that idea. Most Israelis like that. They just don't want to get blown up. Nobody wants anyone to get blown up, I think, and therefore I think we need to think about how do we turn this crisis into an opportunity that involves the Palestinian cause, not that bypasses it, that includes it, but it has to be a way that this Palestinian state would be prosperous and stable and not be a platform to fire rockets and destroy Israel like on October 7th. I think if we could put our heads together, and with the Gulf playing a key role because the Gulf is respected by everyone, then maybe we could build a better future and turn this terrible tragedy into an opportunity for the future. Thank you.
Gulf look to the future and they're trying to have visions, they're trying to build their countries, and they always look to that future, and wars and does not, or conflicts or crisis does not help their goals, but it takes two to dance the tango, David. So it's not only about the Gulf or about who. Every US, the Israeli, the Palestinian, everybody has their own duties to fulfill if we want to reach stability in the region. And by this, we come to the end. Would thank you all very much for being patient with me and navigating with me through this 1.5 hour, and thanks for all of those whom they've been following us and with us. And also I apologize for not taking the question because of the short time and we have many speakers. Thank you all and looking forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdeslam.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.